Why don't we just go ahead and get started? We are recording this video just to let you know, so folks can access it at a later date as well. So before we get started, I am going to, well, why don't we, next slide, please. Okay, so why don't we talk about our agenda today? So we are going to start with our COVID commuting options. And then we will talk a little bit about COVID and public transportation. We have Jenny Campos from the Big Blue Bus and Devin Deming from LA Metro joining us today. Thank you both for being here. And then we will move on to question and answers with both Jenny and Devin. And then we will open it up for discussion. We want to hear from you about how your employees are doing right now, if you have any specific concerns that we can help you with. So we'll get to that. And lastly, I also want to point out that our role as the TMO is to connect you to the most current and most reliable transportation information out there. And in our current climate, this information and guidance can change quickly. So we want to make sure that, especially for those of you who are looking at this at a later date, that you are accessing the information that is currently provided to you by the CDC, by the Los Angeles County Health Department, Public Health Department. So please follow the official guidance that has been shared. Today, we have done our best to share with you what is most current as of today, October 29th, 2020. So let's move on with that information shared. Okay, so we are the GoSamo TMO. For those of you who are not familiar with us, it is our job to help Santa Monica employers with transportation related information. We're your one-stop shop, and we can connect you to any transportation resources that you need, connect you to the different agencies that you may need transit passes from. We also have a GoSamo Achievements Award program where we recognize the businesses in Santa Monica who are doing an outstanding job helping to reduce emission and congestion in the city. And we do lots of events and educational conversations like this. We have a monthly drop-in office hour, which happens on the third Wednesday of every month, that we would love for you to join us as well. With that said, let me introduce myself and our team. So I am Pooja Thomas Patel. I am the Executive Director of the GoSamo TMO, and we are a team of 4. So we have Jairo Keme. Jairo, will you wave? And Hank Kaplan, who is our newest addition. And we also have Nathan Pope, who will be leading you through this presentation, this webinar today. We are all certified ETCs, and we're here to help you with any transportation related questions or concerns. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Hi, everyone. So I'd just like to touch a little bit on COVID-19's impact on the City of Santa Monica's Transportation Demand Management Ordinance. So recently, the city has adopted a change to temporarily suspend the requirement of businesses with 50 businesses with 30 or more employees to submit an emissions reduction plan effective October 8th, 2020 through October 8th, 2024. It will now only be required of employers with 50 or more employees. And similarly, the worksite transportation plan requirement that was previously required for employers with 29 or fewer employees, that will be suspended and made optional going forward over the same time period. So if you have any questions as to the TDM ordinance and these recent changes, please feel free to reach out to us at our email info@gosamotmo.org or by reaching out to us through our website or social media channels.
Thank you so much, Hank. As we get going here, I wanted to launch a quick poll and just ask how you heard about our event today. And then the second question is, what % of your employees are regularly commuting? So if you're on Zoom, this should pop up right in front of you, and you just pick the answer that that corresponds to how you heard about us. That'll give us a good feel for who's on the call today and how people heard about this. So let's just take a minute here to answer those questions, and then we'll talk about commuting. We've got a couple people coming in. Another 20 seconds here. Great. Okay, last chance. So we got a good variety of folks hearing about this from different ways, and seems like a lot of folks have employees who are working from home, but a good fair amount of people who are commuting, split across those 4 categories. Interesting, thank you. So moving on, we're going to talk about commuting. Right now, there's a lot of folks working from home, but there's a lot of folks who are still commuting. That's what that poll just told us. And so we really want to talk about those folks who are going into the office, going into the work site, commuting regularly, and what their safe options are during this COVID-19 pandemic. Taking a moment to acknowledge that this is a tough time for businesses for a variety of reasons due to the pandemic. And commuting is just one small part of that. But anything we can do to make that easier on those employees can hopefully go a long way. So first, we're going to talk about a couple different modes of transportation. The first being kind of your active modes, your walking, biking, and scooting. When doing research for this, we were looking at how safe this opportunity is. And for walking, biking, and scooting, as long as you're following the main precautions, the research seems to say that you're pretty safe. If you're wearing a mask, you're maintaining 6 feet of distance, you're going to be pretty safe when you're passing other folks, whether you're walking, biking, or scooting. And the big reason for that is because you're outside. In Santa Monica, we have these new Lyft bikes. These are the pink wheeled bikes that you may have seen. They're the new electric bikes, and so that's a great shared option that people can take if they're commuting from the train station or if commuting from somewhere in Santa Monica. And we also have our scooters as well. You may have seen some articles about a bike boom that's happening during the stay-at-home order and the COVID-19 era, where more people are dusting off their bikes and trying them out. We like to hope that this will be a lasting trend, that people will continue to ride their bikes into the far future, and we want to do everything we can to encourage that. Moving on to carpooling and van pulling, these are where there's a bit more suggestions on how to be safe. The CDC and LA County Department of Public Health have some precautions that they listed, and I think these also apply to Uber and Lyft rides as well. So wearing a mask, that's a no-brainer, but making sure you cover your sneezes and coughs, limiting the number of people in the ride. So if you're doing van pulling programs, you're a larger employer, making sure you don't fill those up to capacity anymore, making sure that there's as close to 6 feet of distance around each person as you can. Riding to work with the same people, keeping your COVID network closed so you're not interacting with different people every day, using the fresh air, keep the windows open if you can. We're in sunny Southern California, so hopefully that's not too hard to do. Making sure you're cleaning and disinfecting, and then also washing your hands, keeping those clean and disinfected as well. And then the other one, if you have waiting areas or places where people regularly get dropped off, make sure that there is adequate space for people to spread out while they're waiting or getting out as well. Public transportation, we have public transportation experts on here who can tell us a little bit more, but I just wanted to highlight real quick this study that came out of the American Public Transportation Association just very recently in September. There's a link to it that will be sent out with the slides, and it really found that there's no direct correlation between urban public transit and the transmission of COVID-19. And they also wanted to highlight the concern that there will be long-term health consequences if people in large numbers switch from public transit to private cars. There's a lot of consequences if everyone goes back to their cars that could be bad for traffic, bad for the environment, bad for individuals for a variety of reasons. And they really highlighted what the health experts are all saying: wear a mask and keep socially distanced if you can. They also mentioned that it appears that what you do at the end of the trip affects the probability of contracting the virus more than the mode of traveling. So that's things like wearing a mask and washing your hands. So with that, we're going to talk to our public transportation folks. First off, I'm going to pass it over to Jenny Campos at Big Blue Bus. And then after she's done, we'll go talk to Devin at LA Metro, and then we'll open it up to any questions. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Jenny. Jenny, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, actually. My name is Jenny Campos, and I am the Community Engagement and Customer Experience Manager at Big Blue Bus. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you can hit the next slide. So we're going to be talking about everything that you can do and everything we're doing in order to make sure that we're safeguarding the health and well-being of our customers and our staff. Just a few things to note about what we're doing at Big Blue Bus is that, we're following all guidance from the city, from the LA County Department of Public Health, as well as the CDC. So today we'll be covering, face coverings, rear door boarding, social distancing, passenger limits, ventilation on board our buses, the level of service we're running, and as well as the cleaning and sanitization of our buses. So next slide. So, of course, face coverings are required on board Big Blue Bus. We encourage, fabric masks, bandana scarves, whatever it is that works for you. Would you mind hitting it one more time? I'm not seeing the third bullet point. So face masks are also available upon request to. Our operators have been provided a supply of masks in case there's anyone who's missing a mask, lost their mask, etc. Of course, children under the age of 2 or anyone with any sort of health issue may be exempt from this rule. However, if we request people with medical exemptions to wear a face shield, if they need to, if a face covering is not something that they can wear. Next slide. So since about mid-March, Big Blue Bus stopped collecting fares. This is for the health and safety of both our customers and our operators. So currently we're boarding all customers through the rear doors. Of course, if we have any customers with any ADA needs or need to use the wheelchair ramp, you can always signal to the driver and you can board through the front door. And as I said, we're not enforcing fares at this time, and we don't have a fare collection resumption date yet. We would definitely encourage you to sign up for any of our alerts so you can be in the know on when we resume fare collection. Next slide. So we're also encouraging, social distancing on board our buses, encouraging, 6 feet wherever possible when boarding or exiting. And, one of the things that we're also doing for our operators is that we've been in the process of installing protective barriers, as you can see in the slide, to keep them safe, especially with the number of people that they're interacting daily. And of course, we have signs throughout our bus on the exterior and the interior, making sure that we're reminding customers about maintaining that social distance. Next slide. So passenger limits, currently Big Blue Bus is doing everything we can in order to prevent overcrowding. We're only running our service at capacity inside our buses at 50%. So that is about 20 people on a 40-foot bus, which is the typical bus you see. And so it'll vary depending on the size of the bus. But again, that's 50% capacity. And we're keeping track of any trips where we may see that those thresholds are exceeded, and working very closely with our planning and scheduling team to ensure that we're keeping track of that and providing additional service wherever possible. So potentially, putting out an extra bus into service. Would you mind hitting the slide one more time? So the other thing we've also done is we've partnered with the transit app to provide real-time crowding information. The app launched a new feature through Go that lets people who are planning their trip know what the level of crowding is on board the bus. Again, these are predictions, but it can be very helpful and empowering for customers to have that information at their disposal and can really inform the way that they plan their trips. Next slide. increased ventilation too, on board our buses. So we are making it optional now for both customers and operators to open their windows. Of course, the reason that this is optional is that there may be differing preferences depending on the customer, but they do have the option to open up those windows if they choose to. I think the majority of people are doing this. Next slide. Currently, our service, we're running a regular bus schedule with a reduced service in certain areas. We're basically running about 77% of pre-COVID service. One of the things that we have also done with some of these service changes that have taken place over the last 6 to 7 months is that we're not currently running service on routes 16, 42, 43, and 44. And the reason for that is that a lot of those routes serve SMC, and with the schools switching off to distance learning, we just haven't had the ridership there. So we've taken those resources wherever possible and reinvested them in other areas of the system where we definitely need the capacity. Next slide. Oh, and just one last thing to note regarding the last slide is that we encourage you to follow us on Twitter to sign up for our service alerts. It's a great way to be informed as you plan your trips and as you're out there commuting. So Big Blue Bus is also cleaning and sanitizing our fleet nightly. We're using hospital grade solutions to make sure that all of the high touch areas are disinfected, operator cabins, just any of those areas that we know are being frequently touched by customers. And one of the things, we keep in mind is that, as soon as someone else touches that surface, it's no longer disinfected. So we definitely encourage you to bring your own PPE, whether that's, hand sanitizer, gloves, etc., whatever makes you feel comfortable when you're riding on those buses. Of course, we're doing what we can on our end, but understanding that, there are a lot of people riding the bus throughout the day. And the final thing to note too is that, whenever we do become aware of anyone who has boarded our bus with COVID, we immediately have been removing those buses from our service and making sure that they are thoroughly disinfected before those are put back into service. Next slide. So, all of these safety precautions, we really see it as a shared responsibility. And, Big Blue Bus is we're doing our part and want to make sure that customers are doing their part as well. So again, just making sure that you're wearing those face coverings, that you're maintaining social distance where possible, using the tools that you have at your disposal, like the transit app to plan your trips ahead of time, using hand sanitizer before and after riding the bus or anytime you're touching any surface on board. Avoiding touching your face with unwashed hands. We also just encourage you not to ride bus if you feel sick and you're just again for the health and safety of everyone else. Stay home if you're not feeling well. Next slide. So when we do resume fare collection, one of the things that we are going to be promoting is the contactless fare options, and we're going to be strongly encouraging this. One of the things that we're going to be doing to encourage that transition from cash to, whether it's a tap card or a mobile ticket, is offering a promotional ride of $1 for every for regular single rides. And so, you can do that through tap stored value. Would you mind hitting the slide one more time? Yeah. Or downloading the the transit app to be able to purchase your tickets. So again, when we resume fare collection, all BBB passes will be available for purchase through the transit app. I know and maybe Devin will cover this more, but I know TAP is also making some headway with some of their mobile apps. I believe everything's available through iPhone right now. I know Android is coming soon. So, you know, customers will have different options to go contactless. And we want to make sure that they're aware and that they're taking advantage of that. Just one final note, you know, a $1 ride for regular customers. We're also discounting the senior disabled Medicare single ride. So instead of 50 cents, it would be 40 cents for those who switch to a contactless solution. Next slide. Oh, and this is, just wanted to play a video for you of what everything, just sum up what we've discussed, everything BBB is doing in order to keep you moving safely. And, you know, to also thank our frontline staff who has been working around, you know, the clock to make sure that, you know, our buses are safe and a reliable option, especially for essential workers and those making essential trips, or for those of you who will be you know, returning to your work site and need to commute. Would you mind?
Together, we are fighting an unprecedented challenge. For Big Blue Bus, it means keeping our community moving safely while cleaning and sanitizing our fleet daily with hospital-grade disinfectants. As we come back together to rebuild our economy and adjust to a new world, let us not forget the heroes who paved our path forward. To our mechanics, coach cleaners, dispatchers, road supervisors, customer service assistants, my fellow operators, and all frontline workers, thank you. To our customers, we're grateful for your support, and we look forward to welcoming you back. When you return to our system, you will notice new health and safety measures for customers and operators. Face coverings are now required on Big Blue Bus, and customers should avoid approaching the operator and keep a safe distance when possible. Customers must also board and exit through the rear door, except those who need to use the wheelchair ramp. Although the journey ahead is uncertain, we will be here to safely carry you through it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much to all the folks at Big Blue Bus. With that, we're going to pass it over to Devin Demings from Metro to talk about Metro, what they're doing, and then we'll open it up to questions after that. Hey, Devin, are you there?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me and see me?
Sure can. Looks like you're on the bus.
Awesome. Oh, yes, that's actually the blue line. Oh, A line, it's my background. So hi, I'm Devin. I'm the Director of Commute Services from LA Metro, and there is a whole lot going on. The way that I formatted this presentation was mostly so that you could grab any of the pictures or information that you wanted to share with employees or others. And, you know, everything in here is free to cut and paste. We don't want you to have to reinvent the wheel. So I provided also the links to the backup documentation articles on our website as well. So I'm going to go through the beginning slides a little bit more quickly because some of it piggybacks on what Jenny was talking about in terms of cleaning, etc. And then that'll let me spend a little bit more time on the things she deferred to me, like the apps. So if I can see the next slide. Okay, so it's, you know, similar to how Big Blue Bus is, Metro has been providing essential trips and making sure that everything is clean and safe for our riders. Next. So we're cleaning high touch point surfaces 3 times a day at all of our stations. So those also include not just rail stations, but the larger busway stations, the Orange Line, Almani Transitway, Harbor Gateway, Transit Center, etc. Cleaning spills, biohazards, and all of our cleaners are EPA approved because we also have sustainability goals, but definitely using disinfectants that kill those nasty viruses that none of us want to keep spreading around. Next. Another one of our buses. This was my alternate background. I could have been in that bus. So we're cleaning the buses before they go into service, while they're in service. At the end of the day, we're cleaning all of the high touch points. And one of the programs we have, all of our drivers, we also have a reduced service right now, but all of our drivers have been reporting to work. So one of the services that we've been operating for our drivers is that if they have a bus that they feel has been contaminated or is for any reason not cleaned during the middle of their run, they can actually call into dispatch and have a brand new clean bus delivered to them on the route. So that's one of the benefits we've had from, even though our service has been reduced, we have not laid off or furloughed any of our drivers, and they have all been reporting on a full schedule, which does two things. One, obviously they still get paid and they're taken care of financially in the middle of the pandemic. But two, that allows us to also make sure that we deliver clean vehicles, or have the ability to deliver clean vehicles in the field when needed. And the same thing goes for if vehicles are overcrowded. If we're seeing that there's a run or a line which has particular crowding on a certain day, we also have the ability to add more buses just in real time as that situation comes up. Next. So same thing with the trains, all the high touch points, you know, places are cleaned regularly. And again, before service, during service, after service, everything is kept as clean as possible. With trains, we don't necessarily have the ability to put a new vehicle on the line if there's an issue, but we do have the ability to call in maintenance and address any issues that arise during the service day. Next. So we're spot cleaning vehicles, everything that I've already talked about. One thing that you can do if you see something that is of concern, there's a few different ways to communicate with us. And that's the point of the information on this slide, is that if you're on the train, we have intercoms on the trains. We also have intercoms in the station boxes. Also, a lot of you are probably aware of our Twitter feed, which has actually become one of the ways that people communicate with us most. And you can usually get a fairly quick response if you tweet Metro at Metro Los Angeles. We have people that are monitoring that line all the time, and then they can also put the necessary items in motion to get a vehicle cleaned, whether it's a bus or a train. We are responding to those in real time. And we've also been exploring additional sanitation options. Use of antibacterial copper film is a new thing. Use of UV lights for disinfection. That's something that's really popular in Asia that we've been looking at. Our CEO is also the head of the APTA COVID Recovery Task Force nationwide. And so anything that's sort of being raised on the level of that nationwide task force in terms of safety or new ways of cleaning, et cetera, are also items that are being tried out locally. Next. So just like Big Blue Bus and all of our other operators, Metro operators are required to wear a mask. Riders are also required to wear a mask. The Metro operators do have a plexiglass partition. Those actually existed before COVID. They were more, initially they were installed to keep our riders safe against any, like, we have riders that are, operators who are from time to time attacked, for lack of a better word. That it's just the plexiglass that we originally installed was really to keep our drivers safe from altercations, but they come in really handy also, obviously, during COVID. While we do require masks, we're not physically removing people for not wearing them, but we are also giving them out along our system. So we have teams of people that go out and travel along our system, and they're armed with masks and also hand sanitizer, and they're going to our busier stations and busier bus turnaround locations. And whenever they see people who aren't wearing masks, they definitely make sure to give them a free mask and encourage them. So rather than penalizing people by removing them from our system if we see them without masks, we're actually out there on the system giving the masks away to people who need them and trying to keep everyone else safe. So that's something that's been ongoing during the pandemic. We call them our street teams, but they're out there with masks and sanitizer. Next. So one thing is that we're letting riders know it is also your responsibility to help keep you safe, as was already mentioned. We are currently doing rear door boarding. We never were free fare or fareless during the pandemic or anytime still even. So we are asking people to pay their fare, either, you know, if they're boarding a bus and it's rear door boarding, a lot of times there is no tap reader at the back of the bus. And in that situation, you definitely don't have to worry about going to the front of the bus to pay your fare. That in that situation, you know, we're not enforcing fare payment in terms of, especially rear door, there's really not the ability to pay fare. So that's kind of a unique situation. But in all cases where you're at a rail station and there is the ability to tap as you pass through the gates, or like on our orange line, some places on our silver line and our busier lines, we have standalone tap validators that are on the street actually, but that aren't even on the bus. So you can tap even before the bus arrives so that you're ready to get on the bus when it gets there. So in any situation like that where you are able to pay fare, we are asking people to pay fare. So also in terms of social distancing, that's not really something that we can enforce as an agency. People have free will, but we are encouraging people to please avoid sitting in a seat directly next to another rider, and to try and keep rows in between them and other riders, empty seats in between, just to socially distance on their own. We are recommending also, if a vehicle is crowded, if you're on a rail car moving to another rail car, waiting for another train if possible, we are also using the same crowding index that Jenny mentioned, and I have some screenshots actually from the transit app coming up so you can see what that looks like. Next. So again, same thing everybody else has said, and I think we'll continue to hear this for a long, long time, right? Wash your hands before and after traveling, limit touching surfaces, do not touch your mouth, cover your face if you sneeze or cough, use that hand sanitizer, don't ride if you're feeling sick, all of the same things that are applicable to, you know, just the general public, or, you know, just going out for any reason to the store, or, you know, to eat or whatever, the same things that we encourage people to do on our system. The link that I included here is a full article about pretty much all of these things that we've just discussed, but it goes into the details about cleaning, and it's something that you can share with your employees or other people who have questions about what Metro is doing during the pandemic to keep people safe. You can just copy and paste the link and share it with them, or feel free to share any of the information from the slides, as I mentioned. The good news, as you can go to the next slide, the good news, you know, that I think we talked about already or was mentioned, is that, you know, really worldwide, there really has not been any information that has shown any sort of hotspots regarding infections from transit, and that, you know, I think are lucky stars every day for that, you know, that transit has not been linked to transmission specifically. So obviously it's a place where people come together, and that's an issue that you know, we need to take our usual precautions, but it's certainly not any more dangerous than any of the other things that people are doing. And I think that's something we need to keep talking about, because there have been some employers, even medically, the federal government in DC told people when they come back to work they should not be riding transit, and I know that happened in the Bay Area as well, that there are some companies that will only let people come back to work if they promise they didn't take transit to get to work, which is unfortunate because, as Nathan mentioned, there will be definitely other health issues that ensue, environmental issues that ensue if people stop riding transit and get back into personal vehicles. We're going to have a lot of other issues. So it's important to note that transit has not been proven to be like a super spreader or even any kind of spreader, and that people taking precautions to say to employees you can't take transit if you're going to come into the office is might have some negative effects as well. So, you know, we're encouraging definitely people not to do that if possible. And if your employer or you know of an employer that is recommending that, you know, we'd be happy to talk to people too that are recommending that and help them understand that that transit is definitely not more dangerous than your other activities. Okay, so we mentioned the transit app. The estimated riders is shown in the app using these 3 designations. And so you can see, you can kind of assess in the app, and we'll show you the screenshot, what that means in terms of, are there usually many seats available? I mean, it's not very crowded, 0 to 33% seating capacity. So that's, you know, a relatively safe vehicle. There's not a lot of crowding. You can easily social distance. That middle level, usually seats available in that 34 to 85% range, you know, is a little more crowded. And then there is usually standing room only, which means that that bus or train is definitely going to be more crowded. And if you have time in your schedule, you might want to wait for the next one. And the thing is that you'll see on the screenshot that you have the different icons for, you know, not crowded. Yeah, there you go. The very crowded. So you can see here, this was an assessment, and I did the screenshot. I just did this as a test and did a screenshot of it. This was saying that the Crenshaw 207 line that was coming next was probably a rush hour bus when I did this. And you can see both down here on the lower right where the yellow arrow is, there's the 3 dots. They're actually supposed to be little people. I'm old and have bad eyes. They just look like dots. But if you look at the bus on the map, they do look a little bit more like people up closer to the top. But you can see where that top yellow arrow is. It says in text, usually standing room only. And then just below that, it shows the bus and it shows the 3 people, which is the graphic for a crowded bus, is those 3 people. But if you look down farther at the bottom, you can see that this particular information pertains to the bus that's coming in 1 minute. But you see below that, if you're able to wait for the bus that's coming in 17 minutes, you see there's only 2 people in the graphic designation, which means it's less crowded. It's in that middle range. And if you're able to wait a full 50 minutes for a bus, which we know people can't always do, then you're probably more in like out of peak bus, and you'll see that there's only 1 person in that designation, so that bus is not crowded. So that's what the app looks like. So it'll help people, and this is the same. This is the transit app, so it's the same app that Big Blue Bus is using and Metro is using and some other agencies, that we're trying to give people as much information as possible when they're making the decision about when to travel on the lines they're using. Next. So also, Jenny mentioned, yes, we launched our TAP app, at least for Apple. We have a little, we're sort of phasing this in. We were able to launch for Apple, I believe at the beginning of October. I don't know, time is sort of all run together during COVID for me. So can't really keep track of what day or what month it is anymore. But we did launch our TAP app. So you can download that from the Apple Store, not yet the Google Store. And you can see that I included the little icon of what it looks like when you download it. So one question that has come up is that, you know, when you register your TAP card, now this is specifically in Metro's app, in the TAP app, because it's different in Google Wallet, which we'll talk about. Once you register a TAP card in the Metro TAP app, you lose functionality of the physical card. So you can only register 1 card at a time, but if you take the card that you have and you enter those numbers into the TAP app and that becomes your mobile card, then it's not functional as a physical card anymore. However, you do have the ability to switch cards out. If you decide that's not the card you want to use in your app, you can change the card that is in your app to another card number, and your physical card that was previously in the app and is no longer in the app is still usable as a card. It doesn't kill the card to load it into the app. It's just that the card basically can't be in 2 places at once. And I think that's more in terms of a security for people, not multiple people not being able to board on the same card, right? If you loaded a card in the app and you also had the card working at the same time, then 2 people could, in essence, try and board with the same card at the same time, and that would cause much confusion. So when a card is loaded in the TAP app, its actual physical counterpart is disabled. And the difference too between these 2 app availabilities is that you can only load 1 card in the TAP app. You don't have the option to load multiple cards. It'll only take 1 card number at a time. Okay, so next we have, you don't have to play this if you don't want to. Some people may have seen it. If you're interested, it's just the mayor talking about the launch of the TAP app and the Google Wallet. people can watch it later if they want. But also I wanted to share that link with the mayor's video so that you can share it with your employees or other people as well. Okay, so the Apple Wallet, the real key difference with the Apple Wallet is that you can have more than one card loaded in the Apple Wallet. So say you have a whole family, you can load a card for every family member in the Apple Wallet. And then all you have to do when you tap in is same thing you would do if you went to like a live show where you have tickets to, you know, the theater or sports or whatever. You just open the Apple Wallet and just swipe through the different cards that you have and just swipe, tap, swipe, tap, swipe, tap, so you can get your whole group in on one phone. So that is a key difference between the Tap app and the Apple Wallet. And then for the Apple Wallet also, you don't need an actual physical card, I don't believe. I believe you can purchase one right through the app. So that there's a link also on the bottom of this page you can see with more information about the apps that are available on the iPhone for now. The Google versions are supposed to be coming after the 1st of the year. So hopefully in January, we'll see that. Next. Okay, I already talked about that. It just tells you, oh, the other thing is for the Apple Wallet, you don't have to wake your phone up. I was going to say unsleep. That's not really a word, but you don't have to wake your phone up. If you're using your primary Tap card in your Apple Wallet to board, all you have to do is have your phone near the reader and it'll read without your phone having to be awake. It'll read in the background, which is nice. So that's like one less step that you have to do. Okay, next. Also wanted to mention the EPass because it's one of our newer pass products. It's been in a pilot program for the last 2 years and it was just approved to become a permanent program by the Metro Board. We currently have these agencies that are on the EPass program, which is Metro, Culver City Bus, LADOT Dash, Norwalk, Pasadena, and Torrance. And you can see in parentheses the rate that is being charged for each of those. So the difference between the EPass and any of our other passes is the EPass is billed at the end of the business quarter only based on the boardings that were used. So this is going to be a really good option for employers who have employees maybe half-time telecommuting or more than that, or you know, if they're unsure when their employees are going to be reporting to work, they're not going to want to pay for a monthly pass or especially an annual pass or anything that requires a huge financial commitment, because obviously, you know, if they're uncertain when people are going to ride, then it's difficult to make that financial commitment. So the EPass allows employers to sign up for the pass program and get cards or stickers. And the stickers, we actually prefer they go right on an employee's ID card, but they do have a tap chip in them. So they basically turn the ID card into a tap card and allow your employees to tap when they ride. And then the business is only billed for the boardings that were used during that business quarter, and they're billed at the end of the business quarter. So it really, you get an instant return on investment in terms of only paying for rides that your employees actually used. And then also in terms of trip savings, you can see, you know, every business quarter, how many vehicle trips were saved based on the transit boardings as well. So we think that's going to be really pass program for businesses moving forward, at least for the near future, that, you know, is extremely unpredictable. We wanted to make sure that businesses are aware that we have a pass program that addresses those issues. So if anyone is interested in more information about that, you can contact me. My contact information was on the first slide of the presentation, and Nathan can share it as well. We're also in the process of adding Gardena Transit, Montebello Bus, and Burbank Bus to the system. And now, I think this is my last slide, right? The question on everybody's mind, the Fairless System Initiative that Metro is working on. So this kind of came out of the blue for a lot of us, including me and probably all of you. But in August, our CEO announced that we were going to be taking on a feasibility study to determine if Metro could operate without charging fares. So I'm on that task force. It is a very large question that includes so many related details with not just fare, but security and other transit agencies, we actually have an ad hoc committee that is comprised of all the other transit agencies as well. So we're working with everyone to try and, I see your question in the chat. I'll get back to it as soon as I finish my thought on this. We're working with the other transit agencies to try and make sure that whatever Metro does in a fareless world, if Metro does go fareless, either we're going to try and get enough funding to cover the program to also help the other transit agencies potentially go fareless, or, you know, we have to work with the other transit agencies to make sure that we can integrate into however they're going to handle things moving forward. We have not made any recommendations at this point. We're still in a research phase. And so we're, our research phase, I think I mentioned I'm on the task force. So our research phase is wrapping up mid-November, and then we're going to start writing the final report. And at this point, it looks like we're probably just going to put all of the recommendations into one report that talks about the pros and cons of the different options. So like when I say that, some of the options that have been discussed are like, well, what if it's just bus that's free, but rail is not free? Well, what if it's just that the system is free on certain days of the week, like Fareless Fridays, you know, as a pilot program, or, you know, Fareless weekends? What if we take all of the groups that are currently in a reduced fare structure, like our low income life program, senior disabled students, and make those free because they're already in a reduced fare program? You know, what would it look like if we made those fares free and then everybody else continued to pay regular, while we kind of see, you know, how the free fare affects everything else? So there's a whole lot of different layers of options that we're looking at. And at this point, it seems like we're going to probably end up putting all of those options kind of into one, you know, matrix, and including then what, you know, what are the challenges and options and costs, et cetera, for each recommendation. So the recommendations are due to our CEO in December. We have built in a 30-day window for the recommendations to also go to every transit agency in the region for them to review with their boards in January. And then most likely in February, our CEO will be taking the final recommendations to our board to talk about, like, what is this going to look like moving forward? What is the timeline? What, you know, is it going to be the whole system? Is it going to be certain days, certain services, certain users? We don't know any of that yet. But we should. Hey, Devin, I'm gonna
cut you off there. I just want to make sure we have enough time for questions, because I know we only have a couple. We're running low on time here. So if people do have questions for Jenny or Devin, or any kind of transportation COVID community related question, now's the great time to ask them. You can either type them into the chat box here. We'll go through the chat ones first, and then if anyone wants to verbally ask their question, you can unmute yourself. So go ahead and type those in now. The first one here is from Rosalie. Devin, talking about, I think you saw it, the employees, do they have to have an ID to participate in the EPass program?
They don't. We do have a tap card. That's an EPass tap card that will provide if there's no work ID.
Great. Awesome. That's a great program. Other questions for Jenny or Devin, or transportation commuting during COVID questions in general? Feel free to type them in the chat, or go ahead and unmute yourself and ask.
I have a question regarding filling out the annual form. We now have everyone telecommuting, or teleworking, I should say, and I'm the only person who comes into the office on a daily basis. So do we still fill out the form? Do we need to do anything, or is it kind of on hold this year?
I think you're referring to the emission reduction plan for Santa Monica employees. And that's going to change depending on how many employees you have. But generally, if you're over 50 employees, you're still going to need to complete that form. If you're, there's a separate survey that you'll complete if most of your employees are commuting from home, but you'll still need to complete the emission reduction plan this year, and happy to follow up and provide more precise detail for your organization.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Other questions, other thoughts? Well, we're going to have all of these slides sent out to everyone so you can reference them, and we'll also make sure to include Jenny and Devin's email addresses. I just want to give one more chance for anyone to ask a question. Don't be shy. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you so much, Devin, and thank you so much to all of our, oh, go ahead. Did I cut somebody off? Well, thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you to all of our essential public transportation workers. We really value, guys, all your work. I want to transition now to just kind of a discussion. We'd love to hear from some of our employers who are on the phone right now, just to get a feel for how your employees are commuting, if they're commuting, what challenges you've faced maybe, and what changes have you made to your commuter program. If anyone's, I think, Andrea, you said that you're the only one coming into your organization, is that right?
Correct. I come in every day, and then there's one other person who comes in one morning a week. Everyone else is working remotely.
And do you have plans to bring people back anytime soon?
It will be when everyone says it's okay to come in, on a regular basis. So I guess when we have enough people who've taken the vaccine, that would be the case. Now, if anyone needs to come in, they are driving in individually. We did have people who took the metro and took the bus and walked and rode their, but we do have people who are driving in, maybe once a month or something for a couple of hours.
The few folks who are coming in are driving. Interesting. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I see John here in the chat says that parking is great. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your organization, John, and what percentage of folks are coming in and how that's going?
So we have 2 buildings here, a total of 32 employees. And right now we have 3 in one building and 2 in another. And we're deemed an essential business. So 7,500 square feet in one building. Socially isolating is really easy. Parking is great. Just looking for this new normal to be the regular old normal we used to have.
Yeah, and the few folks who are coming in, are they driving, or do you know how they're getting into work?
Driving, and then we have a Santa Monica employee who rides a bike.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know that. Anybody else want to share anyone else want to share how their employees are coming to work? Maybe Rosalie, I can put you on the spot. Oh, she just texted or typed in. Majority driving alone during this time. Solely employees are going back to using public transportation, but there are folks who are using public transportation. That's really interesting to know. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else?
I should clarify that a few of us live close enough to work that we walk to work.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. That's the best commute in my book. Great. So I think there's a lot of really good information in this presentation. I really appreciate Jenny and Devin putting it in a way that makes it really easy to share. So we'll be sharing the presentation with you, sharing the recording in case you missed anything, and hopefully there's a lot of good information in there you can share with your employees, especially as people are starting to think about coming back. We want to make sure they have all the facts about what options are out there for them. So I think your role as the employee transportation coordinator or the transportation contact person, if you could help us share this information out with the rest of your colleagues, that would be very helpful. We have made a list of resources here that we'll be sending out to folks. The biggest one is signing up for our newsletter. Hopefully that's how some of you heard about this event. That's where we're going to keep you up to date on all the information related to commuting and transportation. And then also on this page are the pages for Big Blue Bus and Metro. They're up-to-date pages. Pooja, is there anything that I missed that we wanted to add? We got just a little bit of time left.
Yeah, no, I think you covered it all. We will be sending around these slides and these resources, but please reach out to us if you have any questions, if your employees have concerns about riding transit, if they want to know how they can plan their trip, if they'd like to plan a multimodal trip. We're here to help you figure out how to get to Santa Monica, how to get your employees to Santa Monica. So please call or email us with any questions.
And the last thing I just want to say is, remember, it's not just one thing that we do that helps prevent the spread of this virus. It's kind of the Swiss cheese approach where you get a whole bunch of slices of Swiss cheese and then nothing can get through. So every slice of Swiss cheese is a different tactic that we're taking to wear a mask, stay home where appropriate, socially distance. All those things add up and they make a really big difference. So just keeping that in mind, we'll keep everybody healthy and working. So, and the very last thing that I want to say is there's an election in a week. Make sure you vote if you can. So thanks so much to everybody who's here today. Thanks so much to our presenters. We really appreciate it, and look for an email from us here in the next day or so. Really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you all. Thank you.